A Real Farmhouse Horror Story. Chapter 1. The smell hit me first, a sickly sweet mixture of rotting hay and something else I couldn't quite place. Standing before the weather-beaten farmhouse, I questioned my decision to accept my realtor friend's offer to house sit while she sorted out the estate sale. The previous owners, the Caldwell family, had vanished 3 months ago. Not disappeared, vanished. Left their clothes in the closets, food on the table, and truck in the barn. The kind of vanishing that makes local papers write cryptic headlines and townsfolk whisper in grocery aisles. The porch boards creaked beneath my feet as I approached the door, each step echoing in the hollow silence of the surrounding cornfields. The key stuck in the lock, requiring a firm twist that sent rust flakes cascading to the ground. Inside, the air was thick with neglect and that same unsettling sweetness. I made it until midnight before I heard the first sound, scratching within the walls. Not mice, too deliberate, too rhythmic, like fingernails marking time. 2 a.m. brought the whispers. They came from the kitchen sink drain, childlike voices speaking words that seemed to catch in the pipes. I convinced myself it was just the wind until I heard my name among their murmurs. At 3:17 a.m., I saw it, a dark figure in the hallway mirror, standing behind my reflection, tall, impossibly thin, wearing what looked like a burlap sack for a face. I blinked and it was gone. But in the mirror's surface, something had been written in condensation. The Caldwells aren't gone. They're in the walls. And now, so are you. I ran, but as I reached for the front door handle, I noticed my hand, translucent in the moonlight, fading like a photograph left too long in the sun. The last thing I felt was that sickly sweet smell filling my lungs as the walls of the farmhouse reached out to welcome their newest resident. They never found my body, just my phone, car keys, and a hastily scribbled note in handwriting that doesn't quite match my own. Property available for the next caretaker. Sometimes on quiet nights, you can still hear us scratching. Chapter 2. They say trauma can fracture a mind, splinter it into pieces that never quite fit back together. After my disappearance, I existed in fragments, consciousness scattered throughout the farmhouse like broken glass. Sometimes I was in the walls, other times the attic, but mostly I lingered in the spaces between seconds, watching as new victims arrived. The realtor, my friend Sarah, was next. She came looking for me 3 days later, her face lined with worry. I tried to warn her, to scream through the pipes, to make the floorboards creak in Morse code, run. But the house, no, the entity that was the house, had other plans. What I witnessed that night shattered what remained of my sanity. The Caldwells weren't just in the walls, they were the walls. Their flesh had become the wallpaper, their bones the framework, their memories the very foundation. And Sarah? She became another layer, another story in this architectural nightmare. But here's the true horror. We were all here by choice. Deep in the basement, in a room that exists only on Wednesdays, I found the truth. Newspaper clippings dating back to 1887, all telling the same story with different names. People drawn to this place, not by chance, but by design. We were all running from something. Failed marriages, crushing debt, unspoken crimes. The house knew. It promised absolution through absorption. The Caldwell father hadn't just disappeared with his family, he'd orchestrated their integration. The markings I found in his journal, written in a hand growing increasingly erratic, spoke of ancient rites and sacrificial architecture. To become eternal, he wrote, one must become foundation. Now I understand why the house chose me. In my desperate attempt to start a new life, to escape my own dark past, I had marked myself as perfect quarry. The house doesn't just take, it transforms. We are its memory, its consciousness, its eternal audience. Each new caretaker brings their own demons, and the house feeds on them, adds them to its twisted collection. We watch from behind the mirrors, through the cracks in the floorboards, as they discover their own reasons to stay. Some scream when they realize. Others, like me, simply surrender to the sweet release of becoming nothing and everything at once. Last week, a young woman arrived, clutching a foreclosure notice and running from shadows of her own. As she sleeps, we whisper her darkest secrets back to her. Soon she'll understand that the house isn't a prison, it's a sanctuary for the damned. And just like the rest of us, she'll choose to stay. Because the real horror isn't being trapped in these walls. It's realizing that we never wanted to leave. They say this house consumes souls, but that's not quite right. It collects them, preserves them, binds them together in a tapestry of shared suffering. And as I write this warning, using the condensation on a bathroom mirror, I realize I'm no longer sure which memories are mine and which belong to the others. Perhaps that's the ultimate price of admission, the slow dissolution of self, until all that remains is the collective nightmare we've become. If you're reading this, ask yourself, what are you running from? Because the house already knows, and it's waiting to welcome you home. Just listen for the scratching in the walls. That's us making room for one more.